So, dudes, let's seriously talk about the Super Nintendo just for a minute. Haha, psych! When it comes to a jamming system, the Jaguar takes the cake with 64 bits of power and CD quality stereo sound, according to the box. It's got the perfect pieces to put together one of the best, most intense basketball games ever. White men can't jump. Alright, the census says this is actually one of the worst games available for the Jaguar. But seriously, how bad could a Jaguar game be? What do you think, Melissa?
What's your favorite thing about the Jaguar system?
It's the graphics.
Alright, so that guy was clearly delusional and obviously not called Melissa. But when you're talking about a system with 64 bits of raw gaming power, the graphics are going to get called into question. So yeah, seriously, white men can't jump. What did it bring to the table? It uses 2D sprites set up in a 3D environment. It can be an effective way to create this illusion of 3D, especially in those early FPS games. It's probably fair to say that it falls apart when you're dealing with a sports game like this. Different sprites are being viewed from different angles, the camera is shifting trying to keep up with the action, and the illusion itself just starts to fall apart.
It's off.
But I guess the big question for me is, would this game be as memorable if it was made any other way? We just aren't going to get games that look like this anymore, and I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. But when the Jaguar landed, it was this sort of experimental transitional phase between the 2D sprites and the 3D polygons. And up against those trashy 16-bit systems, I think the extra horsepower here really shows. It's not as easy to look at.
That's a travel right there.
Bumped up against what other street basketball games were doing at the time, it's an interesting approach. Instead of the horizontal courtside view, we do get pushed further into the action. And that 3D look opens up the swinging camera action that you couldn't get in a sprite-only game.
Hands on the rim.
So whether that's a good or a bad thing, I guess it doesn't really matter because it doesn't make the game any more fun. But there's bigger issues here in this game than the camera. The Jaguar offers a very unique experience, and to be honest, I kind of like it. It's a bit refreshing. But I guess talking about unique experiences, the Jaguar controller again comes into question. They've obviously tried to make this as pick up and play as possible, so only the 3 big red buttons are used, but the Jaguar controller can look a little bit daunting, especially to those simple NES folk. But let's take the PS3 controller for a second. That doesn't have a keypad, obviously, but they still managed to cram 13 buttons on here, as well as 2 analog sticks in addition to the D-pad. So I'm not saying Atari knew how to do a good controller, but for all the complaints this controller pad gets, it's still pretty tame by modern standards. But for a game with some serious lack of polish, I was impressed by how many teams are available here. And looking at the manual, each one has its own crazy backstory and each player has their own special move. I guess they had a blast putting the manual together at least, but if you needed further justification to pick up the game complete, they've actually got a pretty good hints and tips section which will tell you how to deal with the computer opponents as well, especially when you're just starting off the game. If you're planning to give this game a chance, the tips here and the special moves will certainly make the game just a little bit more likable, especially when you can see that you can hop into the options to turn off the text and sound. So if you pick the game up boxed, you probably saw that it originally came with a free multi-tap. That always felt like such a cruel joke. I have such a hard time finding one person to play Jaguar with. I can't really be expected to find 3. I already called the second controller one of the most useless Jaguar peripherals due to the lack of 2-player games. So there's no way I'm picking up controllers 3 and 4. So I saved a bit of money and I didn't get the multi-tap included in post. But that doesn't really leave many reasons to play it. But Here's a thought, and it might help you understand why I enjoy playing the Jaguar. But does a game need to be good or necessarily enjoyable to be worth playing? Can you play a game just for the experience? It's the chance to be exposed to something, and the Jaguar feels raw. And there's not many games more raw than White Man Can't Jump. If you sink a few hours into it, work out the controls, and even start getting better, you might even find yourself liking the game a little bit more. But that's going to bring us into the worst aspect of White Man Can't Jump, the tournament mode. We've got all these teams. You've played the same 4 courts over and over again, and there's probably a couple of hours under your belt by the time you hit the big championship. If you've put in all the time and effort to rise up off the streets, you're probably expecting a real tournament, something a little bit exciting, something a little bit different. Right? One match and the championships are over. That is literally all you get. So for everyone who sat down and played White Man Can't Jump and liked it enough to even attempt tournament mode, that last screen is a really big middle finger. But in all fairness, not many people are ever going to see it. So there it is, White Man Can't Jump. Is it really the worst game ever on the Atari Jaguar? I think there's going to be more broken games than this. It's actually not that bad on the surface, really, but the tournament mode is a real letdown, and the frame rate does suffer a bit. You probably won't be coming back here for the gameplay or the graphics either. I kept coming back for that real blast of 90s basketball action, but up against NBA Jam, this game doesn't even feel like the underdog. It feels like a Dagwood dog, crusty and a little bit mysterious. If you're here for a bite of the 90s and just a slice of that extreme attitude, White Man Can't Jump will probably tick all your boxes and even bust out a freestyle rap about it. So dudes, slam dunk. That's a wrap. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for next time, when there'll be even more leftover culture.